going to record this just so I can get sometimes
Okay.
listening back if I have to get a quote or something like that. All right, I think.
Sure.
Well, thanks for persisting with this here. We do this a lot with the weekly space hangout sometimes on Universe Today, and as we have to troubleshoot a lot of different problems. But
Well, thank you for your patience and my slight tardiness here, but
that's okay.
Here I am at the Space Coast, and
well, at least
very happy to have this chance to talk.
I was worried you were still in Hawaii when I saw where you guys were based, and I thought, oh, it's got to be like 4 in the morning for you guys or something like that. So
yeah, 5 hours. No, I came in from California. We have our original office in Silicon Valley that we've kept, even though most of our activities were migrated out to Hawaii about 35 years ago.
Oh, awesome.
So I came in from Silicon Valley direct to Orlando, and here I am. So
yeah. So
and you, where are you, Dave?
I'm in Bristol, Tennessee currently, right across the street from the Virginia border, literally like just about 100 meters from the Virginia border. But I used to live down there in Florida. I used to watch quite a few launches. I'm kind of envious that we don't see as many rocket launches from here, but it used to be kind of a common occurrence back in the day. I caught the very end of the shuttle program in the very beginning of some of the early SpaceX launches there. So it's always an exciting place to be.
Yeah, well, it's my first launch in more years than I care to tell you. I wasn't even sure I was going to get on the plane last night. Didn't know whether I'd be have my Tuesday in Florida or Hawaii. Where I'm headed back afterwards after the launch. Yeah,
it's an early morning one too. It's just past midnight, isn't it, when they launch tonight?
Just 12:57 a.m. Correct.
Yeah. So yeah, at least we're in the same time zone.
I guess you have your okay.
Yeah, so
it's usually 6 hours out to Hawaii. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm freelance writer for Sky and Telescope. I'm covering the Intuitive Machines commercial lunar payload services launch tonight. This is the third attempt to land on the moon already this year in 2024, which is quite amazing. It's the second CLIPS launch, and they've had some difficulties getting to the moon. The JAXA Slimlander actually landed that launch last year, and it was kind of interesting that it landed on its side, on its nose, and we actually had a picture of it, which was cool. And I think the Intuitive Machines lander is going to be doing that too, that they're jettisoning. It's not part of your project, but we're gonna actually see an image of it landing.
Correct, and hopefully straight up this time, because we're high placed on the lander. Our two instruments are on the top of the lander, or towards the top. I don't know if you've seen the
yeah,
I
was looking at it last night. So you're part of the International Lunar Observatory Association's project, and you're putting the first ILO-X instrument on the moon on this landing.
Correct.
Yeah. So what is ILO-X, and what is it setting out to do?
Well, it is a primarily astronomical, but not exclusively, enterprise. To our mission statement from 2007, when we had the founding meeting, was to expand human understanding of the cosmos through observation from the moon. That's its prime function. And along with that, we have communications goals and functions also. So this ILO-X, as we call it, if you have the information, Dave, is a precursor. It's a precursor mission to the ILO-1 flagship that aims for the top of Malapert Mountain Point E. We're on this mission. We are indeed going to Malapert Mountain, but to Malapert A, about 2,700 meters up the mountain, ILO-1, of which this is a precursor, is aiming for Malapert Massif, about 5,000 meters. And there's a designation that's called Point E, as in Earth, that we're aiming for to conduct observations and communications. And what ILO-X will be doing will be enhanced with our flagship and its backup, ILO-1 and 2.
When about what time frame are we expecting to see the ILO-1 flagship?
26.
Okay. Is that going to be on a Nova C as well?
Plus or minus.
Is that going to be on the same intuitive machines? Or is that flying with intuitive machines?
TBD.
Well? Oh, okay.
We don't know yet. We don't know.
Okay.
I'll tell you no more in about 2 weeks.
Oh, okay. Yeah, as far as, yeah, because this mission's going to get to the moon fairly quick. I think the landing is February 22nd, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
What's the overall advantage of having an observatory on the moon? What's the goal?
Well, and let me just preface this with a special note regarding Sky and Telescope, which is iconic, of course, and it was inspirational to me when I saw my first copy on the newsstand and the year I spent in Massachusetts on Harvard Square. And,
oh, awesome.
And that inspired me to start what is really the foundation of our, where ILOA emerged from Space Age Publishing Company. We started with a magazine called Space Age Review that was inspired by Sky and Telescope. So I go way back with appreciation and high respect for your enterprise there.
Yeah, it's I read Sky and Telescope as a kid, so it's really, when I wake up in the morning and I get to file an article for them, I have to almost pinch myself sometimes. That's kind of like, it is kind of cool.
Well, I feel the same way talking with you right now. It really brings me back almost 50 years. And so astronomy from the moon. We won't go to the moon just to do astronomy, but now that we have to and will go back to the moon, observation just naturally is one of the first things that will be undertaken. And I think that wherever there are human efforts, either robotic or in person, you'll have that function, almost a first function, to post a lookout, to look up. Now, once we're there, the advantages are significant. How much of astronomy? How much of an astronomer are you?
I'm a very advanced backyard astronomer. I don't have a PhD in astronomy. My degree is in earth science teaching, high school teaching, but I know some things about telescopes and astronomy. Yeah.
Well, we share. My background is in history, actually.
Okay.
So we have that commonality. And as far as the advantages, obviously, is that there's no atmosphere or very, very thin exosphere. Which is a great advantage in itself. Out in Hawaii, of course, we have these wonderful telescopes on Mauna Kea, but still the one I like to tell people that from the beach there in Hawaii, when you look up at the stars, you're looking through 1 meter of water, roughly. When you're looking at the stars from Mauna Kea, you're looking through 1 millimeter, roughly, and still. It's enough to require adaptive optics and other adjustments for the distortions caused by the water vapor. So even.
Oh, I lost him. Oh, I lost you there for a second.
I think, yeah. So the thin exosphere, the very stable platform that the moon provides, which has great promise for interferometric arrays. The far side, of course, is well known. for its radio frequency-free environment, and that's a big current issue, as you probably are aware.
Yes,
To keep the summit area
radio quiet.
the ease radio quiet, right? Radio quiet. Dr. Marconi, Claudio Marconi, I think, is chairing the IAA committee. And I don't have a PhD in astronomy, but I am a member of the IAU by virtue of the ILOA main outreach program called Galaxy Forum, which is for astronomers of all kinds, from professional to amateurs, teachers, business people, general enthusiasts. Galaxy Forum. We've had 111 Galaxy Forums since 2008 all around the world. And it was by virtue of our Galaxy Forum program, I guess, that the IAU thought I was qualified.
Oh, interesting. What type of optical system, we're talking about telescopes, and like what kind of aperture f ratio, what kind of optical system are you guys putting on the moon for this mission?
Well, there are two instruments. They're very small. This is again a precursor. They were built by our longtime partner in just outside of Toronto called Canadensis Aerospace Company, which is making all kinds of instruments for the Canadian Space Agency. And I think they have the prime contract for the Canadian rover in 2026. Canadensis does. Okay. They prepared these two instruments, and other than the fact that it's the two identical lenses are only 3 centimeters. Okay. One has a baffle for narrow field of view observations, and the first observations of the Milky Way that we hope to make. These would be the first observations from the Milky Way from the surface of the moon, robotically, in the 21st century.
Yeah, I saw that in the description.
Yeah, well, our emeritus director, who we awarded Astronaut of the Century 10 or 15 years ago, John Young. John Young placed the first camera spectrograph of any kind. Nice gold-plated instrument built out at Naval Research.
16, I think.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. April 72. Still there. It's still there. And the only other telescope on the moon was about 10 years ago aboard the Chang'e 3 lander. The China Chang'e 3 lander is it also is there, but not operational, called the LUT. If you're familiar with the LUT, the Lunar Ultraviolet Telescope.
I do remember hearing about that. I think that operated for a while.
Correct, and it probably can be brought back to life. Its power supply it's an RTG, so it's good for 30 years. They turned it off. The CNSA turned it off upon the landing of Chang'e 4 on the far side, so that the radio interference wouldn't be a factor in the VLF observations that were conducted. Not all that successfully, I understand, but nevertheless, it's another astronomical venture that China has. The LUT did function, you're right, for quite a number of years. We worked with astronomers out in Hawaii and elsewhere on our side, who worked with the NAOC, the National Astronomical Observatory of China astronomers, and we did come up with the first galaxy spiral image ever from the moon. First image we did get. I'm sure it's on our website. And we have
interesting. I don't know if I've ever seen that. I've seen the Apollo 16 telescope that they left there.
Well, this would have been the second one 40 years later. This was the first lander of the 21st century, Chang'e 3. Okay. And it had the LUT. We had an MOU. And in 2014, we did, Dr. Pierre Martin, who's with the University of Hawaii in Hilo Astronomy Department, was the principal on our side. And he was thrilled to get M101. We got M101, the spiral galaxy. That's what
Now,
we imaged
you-
from the moon with the LUT.
You were saying MOU. What's that acronym? I'm not familiar with that one.
Memo of understanding.
Ah, okay.
MOU, that we conducted in 2013, 2012 and 2013, both with NAOC, that's again the National Astronomical Observatory of China, and the China Space Agency, CNSA. That was 2013, and the understanding was reciprocity, so
Okay.
that of the 10 or so invited observations, invited astronomical observations, I think the third one that we extended was reciprocating per the MOU and letting Chinese scientists make observations as much as possible with our instrument. So, but if I can just, I can't give you all the specs. There are some on our site. The quantifiers that you were asking for about the instruments and their focal length and other characteristics.
So you're saying
China's
China's CSNA researchers will be able to use ILO-X as well?
Well, they'll work with our astronomers to make as much use as our precursor instrument and images can provide.
There's
Correct.
reciprocity between the two. Okay.
Well, that was for the MOU, and we've invited 10 in addition to some of our directors. ILOA consists of, besides our executive committee which runs things day to day out in Hawaii, we have a board that consists of 28 very distinguished astronomers, 3 astronauts, not counting John Young, who was emeritus while he was living. He was one of our founding directors. 3 astronauts, and I think there 12 of the 28 worldwide are astronomers, IAU members. And so that's our organization. We have the executive committee in Kamoela, right next to the Canada-France-Hawaii telescope facility, which is a world-class facility. Have you been to Hawaii, Dave?
No, I've been to Hawaii, but I've never been to the Big Island or the observatory complexes. I've always wanted to go. So,
well, here off the interview record, but person to person, I'd be happy to host you and go to my favorite place on our planet, which is the top of Mauna Kea.
Yeah, I'm retired Air Force. I can get military hops into Hawaii, so you never know. We might make our way there. I mean, it's free. It's a free flight. So.
Oh, good. Well, you have our coordinates, so
thank you.
let me know. Yeah.
When should we expect to see images? Once you land February 22nd, how?
Within 24 hours, we're expecting the first raw image. We have half an hour allotted during the first day.
Okay.
And we haven't worked through the mechanisms. This is our first mission itself from the moon. We haven't yet. It came up a couple of days ago. The timing of the distribution. We no doubt will make at least one of these raw images available as soon as possible. We have thumbnails to choose from, and I think an intermediate JPEG form as well to deal with. But we're expecting one raw image a day from each of our 2 cameras. So the 22nd, you're right, is the projected landing. 29th, leap day, may be the last day. There may be an effort to extend into past sunset, if possible. But that's
Yeah, you
the
guys are gonna, basically, what I was reading is you're planning to operate for 2 weeks. And then there's no chance probably that it might survive a lunar night or,
well, good question. Yeah, 2 weeks, of course, is the lunar day, and we're arriving not at the very beginning, so we'll only have about 8 days. There were a complex of considerations in the launch and landing date that were beyond us, but so we have those 8 days. And our cameras, we believe, would survive the lunar night, but the main ship will not. There's nothing to keep
Yeah,
the instruments running.
because I was just thinking, of course, it's outside the 14-day window. We have the April 8th lunar eclipse, or solar eclipse, which you would see the moon shadow on the Earth. I think there's a penumbral before that. I'm thinking about eclipse season from the moon might be kind of a nifty thing to see if you guys could image the Earth. But
Well,
that's outside that 14-day window.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And that idea of catching an eclipse, and we hope to catch with our imaging. Not sure what the latest downloads were, but I think that the Earth may be in sight towards the end of the mission when we capture as much of the Milky Way as we can. Our goal was to have captured our first goal. Can I just tell you real quick what the mission goals are?
Yeah, go
Pretty
for it.
simple.
I have about 8 minutes left before I run out of free time on Zoom. So yeah, go for it.
Okay. One is galaxy imaging. In particular, the goal was to capture the first image of the Milky Way galaxy from the moon, with the exception of the images John Young caught 50 years ago. And I think he got the Oort cloud. But we're aiming for the center of the Milky Way with the idea, the prime image, we wanted to be first light, but that didn't work out with this landing schedule. We've had a dozen different landing scenarios. The mission is 27 months after we contracted for it. So we've had many changes, and the galactic center has come and gone, as the months slipped. But we will image the Milky Way galaxy, and with the idea that there may be an iconic value similar to the first image of the Earth from the moon in last century. You remember the Earthrise image?
Yes.
And everybody does, and its influence was incalculable in terms of environmental awareness, the whole ecological movement, seeing our home planet for the first time across the surface of another world. And this time, when we go to the land on the moon in the 21st century, we will look not just back at our home planet, but out into the future, into the galaxy. And the idea that this is the first image of the galaxy from the moon, of course, not from Earth, but from the moon, basically indicating that we've arrived, we humans.
Yeah.
There'll be 10 other payloads on board our mission, all have their own stories and objectives, and many more eclipse missions, and from Japan, India, China, Koreans are planning a landing, a lot from Asia.
Yeah, it's a busy time on the moon. Like I said, already this will be the third landing attempt this year and not as many months.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So, and I know Astrobotics and Intuitive Machines are probably going to try again this year later as well. And there's the Chinese are doing a sample return mission from the far side. I think in May. That's still on.
Correct. Yeah. There's a lot. I think you've named them. China's next, and then maybe we'll see. Intuitive Machines may have two more this year. Astrobotic, I have some doubts whether in the beginning of the year you list all the possibles, and
Yes.
the end of the year, you're lucky if you get one or two. But
It's funny,
astro
I do a big roundup every year for how many space flights are going to happen in the coming year, and it is amusing to look back and you're like, maybe half of them actually happened.
There you go.
Yeah.
So there are a number of other ones that you've mentioned. I think Firefly is another company that has
Yes.
Eclipse Award, and I don't know what we'll see from other countries other than China on Chang'e 6 in the near term. The second of our three astronomical objectives, besides the galaxy imaging, are these invited observations, a proof of concept of astronomy from the moon. The idea of opening a whole new frontier for astronomy is pretty humbling and pretty awesome. And I'm not so presumptuous as to draw any parallels with our little ILO-X instruments and the awesome Webb telescope,
Yes.
other than we're pioneering a new frontier of astronomy as well, as Webb is pioneering the L2 point. And so we have these 10 invited observations. The first one is rather surprising, which I'll tell you in a moment. And the second one is to the Canadian Space Agency, and the third reciprocating to China, and the fourth to Chile, which is now the world center of astronomy in many ways, and Europe, etc. And then some of our directors also have asked for opportunity to make observations or be involved. And the third objective is local Hawaiian-based, to provide a new dimension, as I mentioned, a new frontier for astronomy, a new dimension for 21st century Hawaii astronomy, which may be as exciting an objective as any of ours. You probably know the situation somewhat astronomically on Hawaii Island with the
Yes.
controversies.
Yes.
And so that was foreseen by myself and others early on in ILOA, that there would be this limited space on the mountain, cultural issues, environmental issues, and by placing our instruments way up high on the moon, we don't touch a pebble on Mauna Kea, but we are working with our neighbors, Canada, France, Hawaii. Keck Observatory is just a couple of 100 meters down the road, and we're working with them and all of the Mauna Kea observatories, with the idea that we'll interact in ways that are yet to be determined, and enhance 21st century Hawaii astronomy, not only by the prospect of a bigger telescope on Mauna Kea, which probably will happen sooner or later when it's done correctly.
Yes.
Nevertheless, this is a new dimension. So those three objectives of galaxy imaging, invited astronomical observations, proof of concept for astronomy from the moon, and the Hawaii 21st century astronomy.
Well, it's
and then our fourth.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I should mention, I mentioned communications. We also will be prototyping lunar broadcasting. We have our original space age publishing company that I told you drew inspiration from Sky and Telescope 48 years ago. We have a world-class weekly, which I highly recommend to anyone interested in space and astronomical matters, called Space Calendar. Calendar. And it's like a weekly guide of what's going to happen next week in the space field, as much as that can be predicted. You know, we can't predict the future, but this comes as close as we can manage. Space Calendar.
Okay.
We also have a Lunar Enterprise Daily, which has had a more checkered career than our Space Calendar weeklies of fiction. We haven't missed a week in 47 years, except the big earthquake knocked our Hawaii office down 20 years ago.
Well,
So we intend to broadcast the space calendar from the moon. We have a prototype issue that will be downloaded once we're on the moon and sent back. And eventually we'll solicit advertisers who want to get their word out, get their message out from the moon to global outreach. That's the mindset we have